you've also had to keep reinventing yourself. How does that feel like from a career perspective?
I think it's important for people to stay curious about what's happening outside. And the reason I say this, marketers have an inherent weakness is we tend to look at our function through a microscope. Marketers think they're only obsessing about buying the next automobile or only obsessing about cavity prevention through toothpaste. That's not the real world. And even today, one of the reasons why linear TV is surviving is because of the majesty of sports. The world has more acceptance of people everywhere doing creativity, and people are generally less accepting of advertising. It's easier to make people laugh than to make people cry.
Of course.
People remember you better when you make them laugh,
Right.
because it engages you more.
Hi, I'm Janisha and I'm hosting Goa Cast, which is Goa Fest 2026's official podcast. And here today we have with us Mr. Shubhranshu Singh. Thank you so much for making the time. You've had years of experience across multiple different industries, so I'm excited to get into the conversation directly.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Great to be here again, second year in a row.
Second year in a row. How was last year?
Wonderful.
Amazing.
Yes.
How do you feel about this year's theme, which is resetting for growth? And how has that panned out in your career?
I think, resetting is something that is a fact of everyday life. It's just both in terms of urgency and consequences coming to a boil right now, mostly because of the emergence of digital and social as a media, as a platform, as a technology in the past, and now with the rise of AI. So I think in this ecosystem where we have agencies, clients, business managers, it's very important to take stock of it and be mentally and emotionally prepared for the reset. So I think it's very opportune timing.
Amazing. And you've had experience across multiple different industries, like I said. What is it that, you've also had to keep reinventing yourself while building expertise in that field. How does that feel like from a career perspective?
Irrespective of whether you move across categories or industries, I think it's important for people to stay curious about what's happening outside. And the reason I say this is marketers have an inherent weakness is we tend to look at our function through a microscope, whereas consumers look at our work through a telescope. There's 100 other things going on in their lives. Their geyser is not working, their boss is a horrible human being, all kinds of mess in their lives. And we think, if that purple on the logo would have stood out, if the font could have been bigger. They're not fussed about it like that. Plus, a consumer interacts in the course of her day with endless number of brands or brand-inspired messaging. And in the world where the pivot is all around digital screens, they are one swipe away from jumping to completely different propositions. So imagine I am on Licious ordering chicken, and then I'm on ICICI Bank app, and then I'm on Zerodha. So my mind is like a kaleidoscope. That's the consumer's mind. However, marketers think they're only obsessing about buying the next automobile or only obsessing about cavity prevention through toothpaste. That's not the real world. So the more you are curious, the more you are able to collect more dots, the better you'll be able to, and connect them for your own business purposes. And also this fallacy, we were taught that there is awareness and there is consideration. So marketers need to put a hook. But in my life's experience, in my working career in the last 26, 27 years, I've noticed it's more like Velcro. It's not one hook. It's many, right? And it can be a very powerful bond. So I think every marketer, irrespective of whether they've been lucky like me to change across industries or have stayed in one, they need to have an outsider's perspective. The moment you start wearing a marketer's uniform and talking gibbly-gook, then it's you're on the downhill slope.
It's an amazing way to put it across as the consumer's mind is a kaleidoscope mind, and you're not just finding one hook to stick on, you're finding multiple. How do you actually do that at the grassroots level?
One is to be out in the real world. I meet many people who say, I don't watch serials. I don't watch Hindi movies at all. And, what do you do? I play the clarinet and I go to Machu Picchu. Well, that's not where the Indian consumer is, right? So, even if you're doing it against your natural tendencies, you must live in the real world. You must go to the tapri and have chai. You must travel in a bus and a train. You must be able to appreciate the language in which consumers communicate with each other, because that's the chemistry that you need to play out. And we have seen this consistently whenever relatable content is produced, whether it's in Bollywood,
Right.
whether it's on Instagram, whether it's by advertisers. The more relatable, the more recently inspired, the more everyday life it is, the more it flourishes. When advertising license has just had an endless life, it has perpetuated itself. Sarita के पति ने कहा सरिता की त्वचा दमक रही है. Nobody talks like that in the real world, right? I mean, I don't tell my wife, Tanushri, तुम्हारी दमकती त्वचा का क्या राज है? But we take it from advertisers.
Yeah.
That era has ended.
Yeah.
People now, so people want to talk to brands. They have the ability to push what they like and to escape from what they don't like. And that profound realization has not really fully come into the way creatives are being generated. And last but not the least, is this tornado of mobile screen marketing has not been fully settled down into our industry as such. So, when you see a Vico Vajradanti ad played out on a full screen in a cinema hall, or when you see the hoarding for a new automobile, you're looking up to that media. When you see it on television, you're looking at it eye to eye. And when you see something like this on a phone screen, you're looking literally down at it. So the category codes, the storytelling, how it lives and breathes are chalk and cheese. But we are still operating on the mobile screen with the out-of-home creative mentality. So that needs to change as well.
During your years at Star Sports also, you've launched some leagues that have changed the way Indians look at sport in general. How was that entire experience, and was there any key learnings that would be really insightful for anyone to hear?
People often ask me, I have been in consumer packaged goods, I have been in financial services, Alco-Bev, I have been in broadcasting, I have been in automotive. My wife jokes that now I should, in order, do insurance and hospitals. That will complete till retirement my career journey. But off the lot, people ask me, which one did you have the most fun in? And I can tell you, there is no biz like showbiz, and especially sports. When you see a stadium full of just super enthusiastic fans screaming their lungs out, you were like, what have I unleashed from the bottle? What genie is this? And one of the reasons that it is profound is that's what brand building is all about. It's about having a deep connection, collectivism, many people responding at the same point in time. And even today, one of the reasons why linear TV is surviving is because of the majesty of sports. And therefore, the experience in leagues was very enriching for me as a marketer. Usually, I would have only done advertisements on sports content. But here you saw the whole circus, how it's done, what's happening behind the scenes, how is the play happening. It's the ultimate reality format as well, right? But also it was important because I was privileged to be at a time when almost every league, apart from the IPL, was being launched. So Pro Kabaddi was a monumental change in my life because people told me, hey, you're not going to get a job after this. You're doing Kabaddi. What's wrong with you? But it was really the leadership at Star at that time who were invested in it, who wanted to create the one sport that you can see today, which is not European in origin.
Right.
That is not a colonial hangover, is Kabaddi, and it still remains the number 2 sport on television. Sure, there is a huge gap between cricket and Kabaddi, but Kabaddi has survived and flourished.
To climb up to number 2 is a big deal.
In the opening season, we had an opening of 1. So it was a fabulous experience. Also, it taught me that all great marketing is a combination of what happens in the physical world, in the broadcast world. You have to create narratives. The heroes have to live up to that narrative. Kabaddi in particular was a very injury-prone sport. The teams, the match went like a pendulum from end to end. Absolutely. There was a reset every 60 seconds. People didn't know the category codes as well. Unlike cricket, they don't know what is a good inning, what is a bad inning. So it was a full boot camp for marketing for me, and I was very blessed to have it at that point in my career.
And to see it happen in real life, because you're building something that didn't probably exist in the minds of so many people.
That's exactly.
And then for them to now look up to something new, to create that gap, and then to fill it also via marketing. That is an experience unlike any other.
Absolutely. And I think The proof point of that is sometimes people think, what's a celebrity doing selling hair oil? What's a celebrity doing selling cement?
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that when celebrities acknowledge and congregate around something, it sends a social signal, right? I've often wondered, why do people buy a business class ticket for a 45-minute flight? They're not buying it for better reclining seats. They're buying it because when you pass by to go to economy, they're like, hi, good to see you here. That's the joy. Likewise, when you associate with something which has a lot of time and place in the heart and mind of celebrities, that also elevates the narrative. So it was a full shebang. We were doing celebrities, we were doing beautiful composition, we were doing narrative, relentless publicity, a great experience in the stadium. And that sport was custom built for television. It's about 3/4 the size of a badminton court.
Yeah.
When these huge men are going at each other, you can see the sweat on their brow. It's meant for, and you can do it with a technically very easy to set up camera unit, etc. But the way in which it was done, full credit to the programming team. It came across as a superbly sophisticated sport.
Makes you feel every jitter that they're feeling.
That's exactly right, yeah.
When you worked across all of these different industries also, there obviously must be something common. They're very different from each other. Every marketing campaign, every advertising campaign is different. But the inherent motto that you're following internally must have probably been the same. Is there one that you followed?
Look, like I said, if I told you a very funny joke in Finnish, would you laugh? Even if translating it meant that it lost some of the original humor, you have to make it sensible for people. And so credibility comes from relatability. Relatability comes from context, right? If likewise I cracked a joke about a Finnish brand about which you were not aware, you would not understand the real implication of the joke. So that's one part, which is what you're saying and how you're presenting something. Is that relatable, and is that also contextually rich? The other part is your claim being lived up to, in the sense that if I keep telling you I'm a funny guy, after 3 times you'll say he's a jerk, But if I tell you 2 jokes and you laugh, in your head you're bright enough to make out that I'm a funny guy, right?
Yeah.
So brands often get into this official stencil of permitted. Now, and this has been driven by a self-seeking brand bureaucracy across the world. X brand of toothpaste stands for confident smile. Well, what does confident smile mean? Confident of the kind who can walk into a meeting, confident of the kind who can punch you in the face. X cola stands for happiness. Happiness means what? Laugh your heart out happiness, or satisfied your son has graduated from college happiness, or these definitions are very malleable. But somehow, just to idiot-proof it, we write it up into manuals that everybody then starts to slavishly follow. And that then starts to reduce the brand, reduce its imagination, reduce the number of facets. If you have the best diamond in the world, but you don't polish it into many facets, it will not sparkle. That's the same thing with brands. If you don't polish it against the real world and present it in many facets, it will not sparkle.
Then how do you keep your brand dynamic enough to change with the perception that is constantly changing?
That's a very good question. Earlier, I believe it was more restrictive, because the privilege of being a brand custodian or a brand manager or a brand agency was only I can create ads, only I can touch it. You are permitted to see it off the idiot box. Whereas today, if it's not spoofed, if it's not parodied, if it's not in common language, if it doesn't become a tattoo, it's not really an iconic brand. So I believe today's world is far more eligible for co-creation, for engagement. There is a world of influencers who have sprung up from everywhere. Not everyone who is an influencer is influential, but everybody who's influential has a chance of being an influencer today. We are sitting in a studio-like setup, but we could have done this with a phone. It may not have been as good, but if you were doing something really profound, you didn't need the setup. So I think the world is more equipped. The world has more acceptance of people everywhere doing creativity, and people are generally less accepting of advertising. If it comes across as an advertisement, my eye, I think I have a squint in the right eye because it keeps looking for the skip button on YouTube. I'm not watching the ad, I'm just watching the moment skip comes, I'll press it. So that's the nature of the world that it is today, and you need to find more ways to being native, more ways to being embedded, more ways to being relatable, more ways to being contextual, more ways to being regular. If you, I mean, you call me, say we are friends, and we have 10 other friends, and you throw a party, and if I turn up with a tuxedo wearing a bow tie, they'll say, "What an idiot!" I mean, why doesn't he just dress the way? So you have brands, if they're wanting to make friends with consumers, have to be regular. Imagine there are three people you don't know sitting at Mondegar having beer, and I draw a chair and say, "Hi, I want to be your friend." They'll call security or
Instead
move
of
away, right? So I mean, that's the way brands just impose themselves without being real, and that's not being tolerated anymore.
In fact, that completely ties into my thought of, do you think marketing has become too loud for itself or for its own good? Because brands are increasingly going after attention and people are increasingly going after disconnection.
I'll use that somewhere. Brands are going. Well, however, I think while that is beautifully put, that is an oversimplification. I don't
Yeah.
think people are disconnected, but marketers are over obsessed. So, do you have a relationship with your consumer? I open my refrigerator, there are 20 brands sitting there. I don't have a relationship with my brand or yogurt. It should be good dahi.
Yeah.
When I'm having a paratha in the morning, it should be good dahi. It shouldn't smell. It should be, giving me my money's worth. Yes, there are some brands with whom I develop a genuine relationship of affection and concern because they define me. And not only about showing off, but really being by my side, helping me become a better person. There are brands like that.
Any examples?
Well, I mean, when I was at Royal Enfield, I was privileged to work on a brand which defines a lifestyle. So sure, it's a means of transportation, but people buy a Royal Enfield motorcycle because they believe in the outdoors, they believe in
Yes.
riding. It's grown a movement of people going from all over the country to places like Ladakh. It has certain codes of machismo, but at the same time, it's about being in a fraternity of people. It's about camaraderie. So there's a lot going on there. For example, Star again, or all massively successful content brands have a community following. Otherwise, they
Correct.
wouldn't be massively successful. So every brand has the potential to become so, but every brand does not get there. And the reason for that is they are not opening their minds and, more importantly, their hearts widely enough.
Has there been any brands which you may not have worked with, but has still left an etch in your heart because of the experience that you have with them, because you felt a part of that community?
Sure, I mean, there are innumerable brands. I mean, I'm charitable to brands generally. That's my business, right? I have to be in love with brands. But you take so many. So let me give you in no particular order. Say a brand like Scotch Brite, right? It's just randomly coming to my mind. Now, Scotch Brite's journey has been the rise of affluence in India because earlier we all broadly ate out of stainless steel plates, and it required a lot of elbow effort to clean the plate. And shiny plate was the only answer. Now, as affluence grew in the country, people started getting melamware, plastic, crystal, etc., etc. The rise of liquid detergents would not have been possible unless there was a sponge. Now, it's, when you wash dirty dishes, it's not a pleasurable thing, right? But it's an essential thing because when you present great crockery, it is a moment of pride, satisfaction, arrival.
Right.
And that is an important thing that gets you there, right? Likewise, I would say my son is a very promising tennis player. I think, the whole sports nutrition category is very close to his heart. Unlike me, as you can see, I'm not athletic, but it means a lot to him. Fashion brands, likewise. I was for 5 seasons part of conducting the Lakme Fashion Week, and to begin with, I had a cynical marketing approach to this is all it's a fashion fiesta. But no, fashion is a great business because downstream in its supply chain, it supports so many livelihoods. It sets the mood of a nation. It gives us confidence. So there are many brands that if you have worked hard and at the end of a successful year you get a fat bonus and you buy yourself a Montblanc pen, it is a mark of achievement. People save their whole life to be able to afford a Rolex watch. It is a mark of achievement. So with those, they have an emotional connection, a deep emotional connection. Nobody forgets the first two-wheeler that they bought. you know. So I mean, there is a potential, as I said, for every brand to expand its quotient of emotional engagement or to become very boringly functional. It depends which way you want to go.
But hearing from the talks of all of your experience, for you, it seems like behind marketing, emotion is what drives purchases and consumer behavior. Has there been any particular emotions that are hard to arouse in any consumer?
All emotions are hard to arouse in. Okay, let me first answer you generically. It's easier to make people laugh than to make people
Of
cry.
course.
People remember you better when you make them laugh
Right.
because it engages you more. However, profound emotions are usually also tinctured with some pain. People forget the times that they laugh, they benefit from it, but they very often forget. But nobody forgets a deep moment of pain. It remains with you your entire life. It's dangerous territory for brands to engage casually, but it is a real territory. Now, if you see the way in which commercial marketing gets done, there is a brand, there is a consumer, you have to build a bridge, right? If you can do it in such a manner that at least every interaction moves you closer. Overlap is an
Yeah.
idealistic impossibility in my mind. Nobody is only obsessed about one brand, but people do hold brands emotionally closer to themselves. Unfortunately, we have boilerplated it as my purpose statement, my purpose mission, and so on. But if you're real, people will relate to you, right? Your grandmother may not be the best, most educated person, but you go to her when you seek counsel on what your future should be, who your life partner should be, and so on, because there is an element of trust.
Yeah.
So, brands that elevate themselves in our life have the glue of trust. Brands that are just commodity don't have trust. It doesn't matter.
Every question I've asked you, you have a correlation to a real life story that explains the answer that you're about to give. I love that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Is there any examples of any emotional connects or stories that would describe particularly your entire career journey, would act as advice for the younger generation?
Look, I had several opportunities, and so many of my peers have bailed out of mainstream marketing to
Yeah.
do business roles. I have double-hatted on numerous occasions for lengths of time. But I just enjoy being a marketer, and the reason for that is which other business will pay you for being curious and creative, right? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure you can do so much more than just content creation. But it's something that gives you joy. You meet people, you ask them things, you create content. It allows for a certain amount of expression. What you do then begins to appear on shelves, lights up screens, people adopt that into their language, into their lifestyle. That's a very gratifying thing. Also, every role, every category gives you a new experience. And I say this with great respect to my brothers and peers who are CFOs, for example. If you are the CFO at Apple, the CFO at a cement company, or the CFO at a restaurant, your mainstream role is exactly the same. You will close
Yeah.
books the same way, you will mind cash the same way, you will do investment, only the scale will vary.
Yeah.
But if you are the CMO of a footwear company or at Apple or in a restaurant, it's chalk and cheese. They're completely different planets.
Yeah.
Which means that the marketer must be alive to what's happening in the world around them. I have never seen a liftman in an office give a CFO advice about, sir, that investment decision of yours was, not so great. We could have done better with our cash. But when the CMO walks in, he'll say, sir, वो आपका वो वाला film बहुत अच्छा लगा, ये वाला इतना बढ़िया नहीं था, because that's who you're catering to. Everybody is entitled to have an opinion. And our business is a business of simple language, so everybody can understand it, hopefully, and
Yeah.
play it back. And I like that. I celebrate that, which is why your observation that my answers are relating to real things
Yeah.
is not easy. It is very difficult to start relating it to what's
Yeah.
happening in the world around you, right?
And when you're meeting someone new, is there anything or any quality that immediately stands out to you, either for leadership or for massive career growth?
Yeah, there I would say when I'm assessing talent, for example,
Yeah.
I like people who can pull facts from different domains together, right? In fact, very often I look at writing. Now, writing as in with pen and paper. Nowadays, everybody, thanks to large
No
language
one's
model, a
doing it.
profound expert. But is there a structure to your writing?
Yeah.
Instead of talking, if I can ask them to write 500 words on a subject, it'll give me a much deeper understanding of their understanding and appreciation of the world, their education, their way of thinking, their logic structure, their creativity, etc. That's one. The other thing is, are they funny? It's always easy for people to appear to be serious and to be taken as being serious. You can fake being serious, you can't fake being funny. So if you find people who are funny, they're usually intelligent people. Last but not the least, um I look at credible achievement rather than charisma. If you meet somebody who's very charismatic and then in the same role another person who's applied is not charismatic, I
Yeah.
give more weightage to the person who's not charismatic, because despite not having charisma, they've made it there. They're at that table. So one must give credit to that. But the world is a very large place, and there's a reason why it turns. Everything keeps turning and comes back
Yeah.
to the same place. So our lives are effectively 30, 40 years of working life, right? Say on average we live for 80 years. There's nothing
Yeah.
before that, there's nothing after that. In that 20 years you take away while you're growing up and settling in, and 20 years in the end. So then you have, 40 in the
Yeah.
middle. You must enjoy it. What's the
Yeah.
point of doing something if you're miserable, if you're not enjoying it, if you're not creating stuff? That's what life is about. You should enjoy it.
You're also going after the anti-norm in a way, because usually the more serious person is considered to be more serious about their job, about their work. The person who is more charismatic can get away with conversations, make more conversations, and show that they're there. You've chosen the anti-norm answers also. Any reason or any experiences that have led to this?
Seriously? No, there's a reason for that. And like I'm saying, people who are witty,
Yeah.
in my experience, are generally more creative. To be able to tell a joke means you have observed the boringness of the world, right? And you're flipping it around. Now, mediocre people, sensible people are jealous of such people. They don't like funny people. They think he's against the crowd.
Yeah.
So the behavior is to beat them into submission and make them equally boring. So the rebels in the world are usually, in the last 30, 40 years, with the rise of the Silicon Valley, the geek is being celebrated a lot.
Yeah.
That's also kind of anti-norm. But the conventional norm was, I must wear a tie, I must wear a
Yeah.
suit, I must appear to be serious. These are profound matters. You must appear serious, you must lean in, take note.
Yeah.
Somebody is making a joke about it, they'll say, this guy is a bad apple, he's not serious.
Yeah.
But you must see the good in that. The good in that is that the person is able to take a light-hearted view and yet his mind is working. Of course, there is a risk that this kind of a behavior can get flippant.
Yeah.
That they don't take anything seriously at all. And I've seen characters like that as well. But generally speaking,
Characters like-
yeah, funny people are interesting people to be with.
Very interesting. Is there anything in your life outside of work that keeps you creatively engaged and alive?
I'm interested in 100 things, frankly. I love to cook and
Definitely.
eat, as you can see. I love to read and write. I'm writing all the time. I love to speak to people who are not in the crowded space. You see, Napoleon Bonaparte, the famous French general and emperor later, used to have a saying, battles are won where the gunfire is the loudest, which means that's where the thick of battle is happening. And in my observation, value is created in the white spaces. You see, if you are candidate number 582 doing the same thing that candidate number 1 to 581 have done,
Nothing
fat
different.
chance you're going to do different. If you go to a place which is new, which is engaging, which is fresh, there's a chance you can do more and create more value and create happiness for yourself. Happiness is a very important thing. All the people who are so delighted at being successful, in my opinion, are preparing for having a very boring or even miserable retirement, because they don't have other interests in life.
Yeah.
Music is a beautiful thing in this world, you see. it's virtual. I mean, we are sitting on a wooden chair, right? There in our galaxy, certainly in the universe, but even in our galaxy, there must be innumerable planets where rubies and diamonds are raining from the sky, right? But we don't know yet of a planet where there's something called wood. Wood is uniquely life. Wood is
Yes.
of the earth. These kind of things should be fascinating to you, right? If somebody saying, lakdi to hai, then then you're boring. So we have an obligation to be happy. We have an obligation to be curious. Whether you're rich or powerful really is a relative measure. So I don't put too much importance to that.
And when everyone's focusing on the productivity, the loudness of everything around you, is there your silent space that gives you that creative?
No, that I must confess, I'm not a very silent sort of a chap, but so I wouldn't say that I withdraw into meditative calm and stuff. I like to be in the thick of things. But reading, I think, is my way of meditation, because it's just, I think, and even if I say this in Goa Fest, you will forgive me, there are very few sources of knowledge which are commercially uncontaminated. Ad supported content is generally done with a commercial purpose in mind.
Yeah.
So there are very few places, even a book that you read is somebody's lifetime of experience going into a book, but a publisher has published it to make profit on it. Sure, it's better than, something else, but meeting people who have spent a life doing something, they can give you a worldview and experience. So learn from people, and this is a practice that India's tradition, spiritual tradition, educational tradition had.
Right.
We used to sit with people and learn from them, just absorb it. That unfortunately we have lost.
That is also your advice for the younger generation?
Certainly, I think you should actively seek out people. And this is a generational problem. I have a 17-year-old. They don't read as much. They like to absorb content through audiovisual and whatever. And I find a peculiar new problem, which is a summary is good enough as the main thing. So, read a book. Yeah, I read it. When did you read? Meaning I saw a YouTube video on it. I've read a summary from ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So this reduction of everything into smaller nuggets is a malaise in my mind. It is dumbing us down. And our memory is getting impacted. When I was growing up, I grew up in Jaipur in Rajasthan. Sure, numbers were smaller, 4545, 4848, but I knew 50 by heart.
Right.
Today, other than my wife's mobile number, I don't even know my son's mobile number, to be very honest. So our auxiliary memory, you meet something, and then you forget, and fuzzily you retrieve it. What is that movie with Amir Khan? So
search it on Google.
You're dependent on retrieval from elsewhere. And that is not good. That's basically making your mind rigid and slow. So it's important to be off screen and live in the real world. It's also important to meet people who are completely different worldview. In that sense, I think artificial intelligence will help.
Yeah.
I think social media was pulling us into positive or negative biases. On the whole, I think AI gives you a more equally balanced view. It's an expert, not a prejudice engine. So it's a positive thing. Let's see where it goes.
Where do you think will it go?
I'm not a betting man, but look, in the last 2 years, trillions of dollars, not billions, trillions of dollars of investment has gone in.
Yeah.
And many more trillions of dollars of valuation are riding on it. So Western capital has decided AI is the future. And they are not going to let go now. So what is the way in which it will pay back? One is through corporate profitability.
Right.
The other is ad support. And ad support, all said and done, is a very... What was the ad value? Last year, the global ad revenues were 1.2 trillion.
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't see it getting contaminated with advertising as the engine. It will have to be through corporate adoption at scale, and that will change many things. Already you're seeing retrenchments, people being let go. This whole thing about writing your exam by covering that era is gone. Everybody will know everything. Today, if you are supported with AI and I am not, there is a gap. That gap will equalize. And then we will reset to ground zero again, because then everybody is equipped with the same tools and technology, right? Just because you have a pen and I have a pen, you could write poetry, you could make a beautiful painting with it.
Right.
Sketch, I could barely write my name. So just having the pen will not change the picture.
But having AI will
Having
make it
AI
equal.
again till it equalizes. On the corporate side, it's going to be a very different ball game because it is a discipline, right? There is a Sanskrit word called tapas, not the Spanish appetizer tapas, but tapas as in tapasya, right? You are supposed to be disciplined. You are supposed to, in a sense, hurt yourself to become better. An
Yeah.
organization that is using AI at scale will need to part with its data, will need to reset processes, will need to hire new skills, will need to let people go away. And that's painful, that's difficult. Once that happens, hopefully they'll become more agile, more profitable, be able to do more innovative stuff. And we are seeing this in many parts already. Tomorrow, when you and I talk, you may be a bot, I may be a bot, or your bot may be talking to my bot. All permutations are possible now,
Yeah.
right? So it's a fascinating world. Imagine an auditorium where live music is being played, and then the lights come on, and you realize 3/4 of the audience are bots who were there to, pick up data signatures.
Yeah.
Does that make the music any poorer? In my opinion,
No.
no. But that's the real world. We're not used to it.
Yeah. Very interesting and depth in the advice that you've given. Definitely to today's generation. It's made an impact in my mind, so I'm sure it
My
will.
pleasure.
In the rest of us, we can move into the fun segment of cards.
Yeah.
So each one of these has a one-line question. You can answer in short or long format. Completely up to you. We can do 5 or 6. We can go one at a time. I'm going to separate them out and keep.
Pull one?
Yeah.
Okay. So the question is, what's a brand that has amazing marketing but a very average product? Gosh, you're going to make me unemployable in the future. I can say that this is true of aerated beverages in general. I believe colas, it's sweet, fizzy water, but it had great
Sugar.
marketing. It has become a part of our everyday life, and we prefer one type of aerated fizzy drink and not the other type. So that, in my opinion, that would qualify.
Very interesting.
Let's see now. Okay. What's something treated as a best practice that's actually just lazy? I think skill building. Corporations make a big hullabaloo about learning and development. Well,
Yeah.
You're obliged to learn and develop. How can you be given a promotion and a pay raise for having done an MBA in your
Yeah.
20s when you're in your 50s? You have to keep learning, turn as the world turns.
How has it shaped for you?
I'm
Learning.
self-taught. I believe, apart from my formal education, which is engineering and MBA program,
yeah.
because of the number of categories that I've been involved in, I have consciously tried to learn all along the way and play back my learning, good or bad, so that I get some feedback. So I write a number of columns, I speak at forums. It gives me a sense of, am I off center or am I actually in the mainstream?
And to absorb from every possible source.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. What's a risk you took that paid off? Like I said, I don't know whether it paid off or not. That we'll know only when my obituary is written. But to stay in marketing, I didn't, jump off to do a business role.
Yeah.
Most people aspire to be CEOs. My aspiration was to be a fabulous brand builder. That's what I've stuck to.
And there's people who want to switch from sales to marketing to generalist roles, usually with the thought process that I want to have a very bird's eye view of the entire business.
Correct.
Do you think staying in one gives you a deeper level of understanding rather than a bird's eye view?
Well, it's difficult. I'll be saying it from my vantage point, which
Yeah.
is having made the decision. But certainly, I think this whole business of P&L is a bit inflated. In my opinion, especially at the mid-tiers, P&L basically means flogging sales. And I think in my last close to 30 years of experience, power has, in public companies, drifted progressively to finance. I think finance has become, perhaps rightfully, the controlling function of. Now, for the first time, with emergence of completely disruptive technologies,
Right.
tech may be the value originator. Earlier, we used to say bean counter, right? Finance guy. But they are able to see the full spectrum of the business better than people who are marketing or PR or sales, because they are obsessively into that tunnel. So there is, I think, pros and cons in both. I just like being a marketer better.
Just enjoy what you're doing. That's the
right.
only thing.
That's right. Okay. What's a piece of advice you always give to your juniors? Be curious. Just ask. Don't pretend. Pretension is the enemy of creativity because you'll end up being a one-trick pony. You live in the real world. That's it.
Last one.
Okay. When did data talk you out of something your gut was right about? Oh gosh, that is a tough one. I should say when
You
I
just
took
spoke
a
about data.
well,
Tech.
I think my paycheck will qualify. My gut was about staying in marketing, perhaps with a smaller paycheck than what I would have made elsewhere. But no, you see, look, it's an important subject, so let me not try and be funny here. People say to me, data is the new oil. And I always say, no, insight is the refinery.
Yes.
Without that, it's just an oily mess. So it is good to have data-based correction for everything you do in life. Now, there is a fascinating subject in mathematics called graph theory, right? We are all used to living with the bell curve. So if I'm 5'9.5" tall, the person to the right of me will perhaps be 5'10", person to the left of me will be 5. I don't expect a 700-foot tall man to stay on the right side of where I am. But in the real world, asymmetric, asymptotic, paranormal, break bounds kind of reality is, if Elon Musk and I stand next to each other, there is no bell curve that will accommodate our differential wealth, right?
Yeah.
So the payoff in the modern world has become a power law driven payoff. So I think data is important to keep score, data is important to course correct. But you must have heard about that case where somebody followed maps and fell into a river, right? So you should not be so obsessed with data that you just become blind to your gut instinct. But I think it's a good thing to balance your gut with evidence of data, but gut first.
With insights.
With insights.
Absolutely. Amazing. Thank you so much for all of the questions. There's a lot of analogies and symbolism that you've brought out in the conversation, which is something I'm going to take back with me, and I hope it helps everybody else who's listening. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank
It was
you
lovely
for having me
speaking
here.
with you.
Great. Wonderful to speak to you too.
Amazing.